Welcome to Acharya Shunya's Global Satsang. Acharya Shunya is a modern teacher of non-dual Advaita Vedanta philosophy from the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, the lived practices of Vedic yoga, and the transformative knowledge of Ayurveda lifestyle wisdom. Her teaching changes lives, enabling happiness, well-being, and spiritual abundance. For seekers of the ultimate truth, these teachings awaken consciousness and assist realization of the sovereign self. Acharya Shunya is a Vedic wisdom holder of an ancient lineage. She received traditional training under her guru, Baba Ayodhya Nath, in Ayodhya, India. Baba tasked Acharya Shunya to bring these teachings to the modern world. As a teacher who has walked this Vedic path from darkness to light, from emotional bondage to spiritual freedom, Acharya Shunya is uniquely able to dynamically communicate these ancient subtle teachings to modern students. We welcome you to begin your journey of Vedic studentship with these monthly classes. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and Vedic Contemplations Facebook group for ongoing study with Acharya Shunya.
Welcome to my Global Satsang. It gives me great joy to carve out this time once a month and sit down with seekers from all over the world and talk about matters from the Vedas, insights, spiritual gems that can help us in the rest of the month be the best versions of ourselves. And sometimes the current affairs around us, situations, circumstances, transpire in such a manner that we feel compelled to pick up and discuss one topic over another topic. So let us do exactly that. So what I want to talk about right now is that recently our entire nation saw the funeral services of Congressman John Lewis, who has been a civil rights activist for the last 50 years. In fact, he was one of the last persons to walk with Martin Luther King Jr. And like Martin Luther King, he was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's teachings on Satyagraha. And Satyagraha can be defined as insistence upon truth, upon upholding the truth through all our acts of social activism, in confronting our oppressors, in confronting injustice, in dealing with what's wrong with the world. It's very easy to go to violence. But what about if we decided to insist upon non-violent truth? Because there is a relationship between truth and non-violence, because truth has to do with our soul. And when we bring the soul into consideration, a softening occurs. And this is where non-violence is born. And John Lewis continued to insist through his illustrious career in our country, insisting upon us to look at the option of non-violent means to further our nationalistic as well as our humanistic causes. So to this great soul, my humble and grateful farewell. And his transition from an embodied being, Jiva, known in Sanskrit, to the eternal being, known as Atma, the boundless one, gives us an opportunity who are still here on the planet to talk about Satyagraha. Many of my students wrote to me that it was wonderful to hear that President Obama and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi brought up the word Satyagraha and how the non-violent means of civil disobedience is a path that has been in the news. We've been hearing it occasionally. It's not that common anymore, but it's been around ever since Gandhi gave it to the world. He made it his way to protest against racial discrimination, against color-based prejudice, against imperialism later of the British Empire in India. So he used it constantly in his career as a person who brought about change. And then he influenced the likes of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and even Albert Einstein talks about Gandhi and his Satyagraha. That is something wonderful. John Lennon spoke about Satyagraha. So why don't we look at it? And in my interest is not only to look at Satyagraha today in this satsang as a vehicle of social change, but I want to talk about it, specifically how we can bring Satyagraha inspired communication in our intimate relationships. If something can affect change at a social level, at a mass level, imagine how effective it will be in our interpersonal relationships. As George Bernard Shaw has said, that life isn't about finding yourself, life is about creating yourself. So each one of you who comes to this satsang, when I am teaching it live or later, you definitely are people who are seeking to create a new you. And Satyagraha could potentially be a tool where you insist upon truth and you persist in the path of truth in a non-violent manner to achieve harmony at a large scale or at an interpersonal level. So before I go into Satyagraha, I want to talk about Mohandas Gandhi, Karamchand Gandhi. He was born in 1869 in Gujarat, India. He went to Great Britain to get a degree of law. And after he became an attorney, he moved to South Africa with his wife and kids to practice there. However, he was deeply pained by the discrimination that he faced. And once he was even beaten cruelly by a stagecoach driver because he wouldn't get up to give his seat for a white-skinned European. So this galvanized Gandhi into action. And he remembered his own mother's teachings around being quietly firm in her truth. And gradually he gave this sense of power, but it's non-violent, but it's based on truth. The truth was that all beings are equal. This is a truth taught by the Veda. The Veda says that we are equal. He believed in it. He was a great devoted student of the Bhagavad Gita. Throughout his life, he kept it near him, read it, went to it for answers. And so he knew that color differences are superficial. We are one. And he insisted upon it. He insisted upon the truth. And this is where the word Satyagraha. Satya means truth. And Agraha means insistence, persistence, not letting go. So this Satyagraha became his go-to mode to protest discrimination based on the color of the skin. So it became a means to secure cooperation and to eliminate antagonism, but without harming the antagonist. So he didn't necessarily want to pick up a rock and throw it at the people who were discriminating, but he wanted to do peaceful protests. And so what this does is that it does not destroy the oppressor. It does not bleed the oppressor. It does not harm the oppressor. But Gandhi's belief was that with patience and with time, which were critical factors in Satyagraha, it's not a quick change which can happen by resorting to violence, but through non-violent means, and even to a degree of suffering that you take on yourself, because there's no quick way, quick getting around the oppression, you will be able to bring about a moral change in your oppressor. The belief was that when you behave in a non-violent but truthful, firm manner, consistently pointing out the truth that we are equal in the eyes of God, in the eyes of our common creator, then a sense of shame or regret, if I may say so, or repentance will arise in the oppressor, and they will change their ways. So this was his core belief. And Satyagraha was based on three things. One was Satya in Sanskrit, which means truth. Second was Ahimsa, which means non-violence. And the third was Tapasya or Tapas, which literally means the willingness to self-sacrifice, the willingness to patiently suffer. So these were his unique beliefs. He put them into practice and he created some stir in the political landscape in India, and he influenced world leaders, as you know by now. Now, it's interesting that Gandhi would be influenced by Satyam or truth. And I have to say that all great leaders in the world, whoever has dared to hold on to a greater truth, whoever has insisted in their own way upon truth, it may not be a satyagraha as such, but any person who has stood by truth has been willing to explore their own falsehoods. So Gandhi's autobiography reads my story of experimenting with truth. So he talks about how he was a student in Great Britain and how he felt uncomfortable, isolated, alienated, alone in a land where his country was colonized by the British Empire and he was probably treated like dirt. So he tried painfully to merge himself in the culture of Great Britain. He tried to be an English gentleman, so to say. He wore those pants, he waxed those mustaches, he wore those golden rimmed glasses, he tried to talk with an accent. And so it's hilarious when he talks about his experiments with truth, which really went through a lot of pretentiousness and painful taking on of personalities and cultures and even sensibilities that were not native to him, that were not his truth. So I really admire any teacher, any leader who can dare to be vulnerable and talk about how the journey towards Satyam or truth goes through some faux pas, through falsehoods. And all in all, perhaps his insistence upon Satyagraha was his own desire to blossom into the truth of who he is. And Martin Luther King got very influenced by Satyagraha, and he really liked the idea of Satya. And then Ahimsa, which is the second part, where you refuse to inflict injury, mental, emotional, physical, on the other. Now this takes courage, and you refuse to do that, and then in tapasya, until you're able to bring about a moral change in your oppressor, you have to constantly bear the belligerence of the oppressor. So with these three things, Satyam, Ahimsa, and Tapasya, Martin Luther King was inspired, and he called Satyagraha in English the rising of a soul force. and it's a silent force, and it's like a weapon, not of cowardice. It was not an act of cowardice, nor it was some passive resistance where it's really manipulation. It was truly a force that was rising of morality and truth. So he gave 6 principles of Satyagraha, and the first one was that instead of physical aggressiveness, we are going to use emotional persuasion. So that was one. The second was that we would never ever humiliate our oppressor. Instead, we would try to gain our humane friendship with them. Thirdly, we are not really upset with the oppressor. We're not waging a battle against a person or a nation or a group of people. We are waging a battle against the evil that is now residing in their hearts, which without that evil would be really open to friendship and consideration and sensitivity. So fight the evil in the heart, don't fight the heart. Fourthly, his principles, Martin Luther King said that if you are going to be part of Satyagraha, then you have to accept some suffering that shall come your way. It's not going to be easy, but you can utilize this suffering as an educational tool and an opportunity for inner growth and to exercise emotional resilience. And finally, as Gandhi had said, so Martin Luther King repeated that Satyagraha can be taken up only by those who believe in a higher power. Because when we are going through this exercise of suffering ourselves, trying to befriend someone who's giving us suffering, it takes tremendous exercise of spiritual will, and that can be gotten and reinforced and reclaimed only by a connection with something bigger, better, absolute, and beyond us. Just our ego alone cannot undertake Satyagraha. It has to be a team effort between myself and my creator. So this is the essence of Satyagraha, or soul's force and movement. It has inspired many leaders, and it is said that Gandhi led many non-cooperation movements in India where people would do civil disobedience. They would silently insist upon, for example, wearing the clothes that were manufactured in India. And so he would quietly spin his loom as a symbol of civil disobedience. Now, right here in this satsang, in this platform, and on my podcast, Shadow to Self, I have talked about the value of violence too. So the Bhagavad Gita itself does not teach Satyagraha the way Gandhi interpreted it. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, the God, the higher power, tells the hero Arjuna to go to war and to raise his sword. So in the Vedas, if we step back beyond Gandhi, the person, into the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, there was room 95% for ahimsa, non-violence. That's why ahimsa paramo dharma, it comes first. But there has been made room 5%, very carefully considered, discerned, violent, that you may need to resort to violence when you are in the face of an extreme oppressor. For example, if someone is trying to rape your daughter, there is no room to persuade them. You have to maybe physically take that person and pull them off of your child and push them to the wall and hold them there till you call 911. And, so some physical hurt may happen. So I just wanted to, because I'm a teacher of Veda, I'm not a teacher of Gandhian philosophy. So it's very important to see everything. So I'm the kind of teacher who doesn't hold on to one ism. I teach the whole picture. So I say Satyagraha is very, very important. I personally, I think, employ it in my own life, and I'm grateful to Gandhi to bring it into our awareness, because I have used it especially in my intimate relationship with my partner and with my son specifically. These are my most intimate relationships. And I don't know if intimate only means sexual, but for me, intimate relationships, English is my second language, but for me, intimate relationship means people I'm very close to. So in my most familiar relationship, which is with my husband and my son, I have used Satyagraha. But I'm also open to the Vedic perspective of very occasionally, on rare exception, with no intention to harm another, but only to self-defend, we use that. So you must be aware, there are two kinds of spiritual teachers: the teachers who just rubber stamp whatever is popular, and then there are teachers who give you the full rounded picture and allow you to do your own thinking. So I'm one of those. I'm the latter kind. So I feel like there is great role for Satyagraha, but there might be a role for self-defense when I give you an extreme example, for example. And I do believe that Satyagraha is the way to go, especially when you are dealing with ego in your relationship. So you have a partner who you have people in your life, your children, your in-laws, your parents, or your significant other, your lover, or your husband, wife, partner, where there is like ego coming up. Then you can be using Satyagraha principle, then you can be the change that you want to see in your partner. Gandhi has said, be the change you want to see in the world. That's like a very great teaching. I mean, don't get me wrong, Gandhi was a great teacher, and he gave Satyagraha because it was his experiments with truth, and it worked for him to a limited extent. It did. And so there is room for all kinds of great teachings and great visions, and Satyagraha belongs right up there. And I would use Satyagraha, Ahimsa, and Satyam and Tapasya any day first before I use Himsa. May my life be such that I don't have to use Himsa, but if I have to, for my self-defense, for the defense of those who are vulnerable, my children, or for the protection of this planet, then I will do a bigger thinking around that. Anyway, so now let's talk about how you can employ Satyagraha in your relationships. This was a thought. So one is, you can be the change. So if you don't want the other to lie to you, perhaps you can really be in a truthful place. And to be in a truthful place, let us look at what is truth. You cannot really be aligned with truth unless you're aligned with the soul. And this is where Gandhi lived. Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and all the Martin Luther King, John Lewis, they really were significant leaders, because despite being politicians, despite being social activists, they allowed for their identity as great souls. This is where they make a difference. And so when you are considering yourself as a soul and you're considering the other as your soul, then you don't just see another body that's oppressing you. You don't just see another ego that is strangling you, but you make room for soul. And when there is soulfulness, there is then the potential to become non-violent. And you might be about to raise your voice and be violent, or you might be about to inflict a slur or insult and be violent. You might be about to push another, but these are all unnecessary. Because you want to be the change, then you will come from love. Yes, Satyagraha brings love at a mass level and at a personal level amidst us. And so rather than pointing fingers at another, you would be able to look at yourself, because when you do this, one finger is coming out, but three are coming towards you. So you want to look at these three fingers, and you can't tell someone to not shout by shouting at them, don't shout, or don't lie. You can't. If you don't want others to lie to you, this is where Gandhi talks about suffering, or tapasya, or persistence, where then you don't lie, even if it has some painful consequences. Even if you cheated your partner, and you know that if you tell your partner you cheated, you might lose your partner. But if you believe in Satyagraha, your partner deserves to know that you have cheated on them. And then whatever will come from that relationship would be blessed with truth, rather than holding on to a relationship that is being cursed by lies. So be the change. And when you are soulful, there is truth, there is non-violence, there is sacrifice, then you are, which is a very beloved teaching of Gandhi, was that we are all one. Hindus and Muslims are one. People of different colors are one. This is where, again, the great leaders of Satyagraha brought into our societal domain this consideration of equality, of gender, of race, of color, educational differences or cultural differences. Ultimately, our humanity is our common core. And so even if the person you are having an argument, well, you don't agree, you have differences of opinions, and an argument is about to happen, and you can have a difference of opinion peacefully, non-violently, but will you continue to remember that you are one, that you're equal? Will you let go of any presumptuous entitlements that you may have been harboring unconditionally, unconsciously, which society around you may have given you those entitlements? We see them everywhere. Scholars from Ivy Leagues think they know it. People from one spiritual lineage who may have a certain more books written in their lineage say, oh, we know it. Scientists who have some data think we know it. But who has the truth under lock and key? We're all equal in the eyes of our Creator. So if we come down from our high horse and then talk, wouldn't that be supportive of Satyagraha? Peaceful, truthful, non-violent, loving, supportive exchanges between important people, significant others. That's something for you to consider. Another very important point that Gandhiji brought up was that Satyagraha does not mean resignation. It does not mean fatalism. It does not mean that we are weak. Just because we're not picking up weapons does not mean we're not being hurt and we don't want to do something about it. So we are protesting against your atrocities, but we're just choosing to do it peacefully, because that is our ultimate goal. So our means, if our goal is peace, then our means is peaceful toward a beautiful vision. Now, when I bring this into relationships, I feel then in that case, the partners have to make a commitment to protest what feels unfair. But can we do it? Can we make sure it is the truth? Because again, truth, we have to make sure that it's a reality. We're not projecting an imagination, because if we suffer from a persecution complex, then we'll just end up, protesting 24 hours a day. So Satyagraha did not happen in a vacuum. Satyagraha happened for Gandhi in an environment where he was a studious practitioner of the teachings of the Gita. He was purifying his mind, his emotions, his psyche constantly. So he knew what to protest and what need not be protested, or what can be accommodated. But if you notice an injustice and you have taken your time to confirm that this is something that must be brought up, then you must be willing to bring it up and not push it under the carpet. You can't simply pretend it's not happening to keep the peace. So all the people who are in relationships where we tend to overlook the red flags, when we bring Satyagraha consciousness, we want to be able to be willing to speak up. And finally, the persuasions we make to our partners, or not finally, maybe I have one or two more points, but the points that I want to say is that we want to bring more loving exchange, a communication that happens through caring, through a conveying of affection, not just fear and bullying and raging and threatening. And I've had some people come up to me and say they have a monster of a teenager that they are raising, a monster. And then when I find out the way the parent is talking to the child is, you better come home by this time or I will lock you out or keep you there, and just extreme behaviors, versus persuading someone by saying, I love you a lot. So now, according to Gandhi, Satyagraha takes more time, but ultimately love will win over any kind of hatred, fear, and any kind of violent ways of winning your point. So you may lose a few wars, but you win the ultimate battle through love. And that is what it is, because ultimately violence will take you nowhere. And temporarily, that's the next point, is temporarily the violence you may think that you won something, but ultimately it leads to resentment, revenge, alienation, separation, estrangement, and even complete cessation of communication. So we're not being passive by not bringing up what is hurting us. We're not being aggressive either. We are being lovingly assertive. And this is a tall order, but it works. I can tell you this much. So we don't want to give in to anger and retaliation and having the last word. And with my son, when he was in his teenage and he would raise his voice, I would breathe and I would just remember this word, this is my child and I love him. So this reminder to my ego that I love him helped me and him go through his teenage without a rupture to our relationship. And any rules I gave him or any boundaries that I put for him were always reinforced with love and non-violently. And I'm glad to say that now that he's an adult, that loving energy that was poured into him we can feel it coming back to us, because we role modeled the change that we wanted to see in our son, this persistence upon truth, that we wanted him to be safe and not out roaming about, late at night. It was a persistence on truth of safety is important, calling your parents is important, choosing company wisely is important, and that we love you, and that we are here in your support, and that we would take a bullet for you. We are here for you. We're here for you, and we love you, and we love you, was the canvas in which these reminders were given to him, and we meant every word. And as a result, I think the message got conveyed, and that was Satyagraha. It would have been easier to just lock him up, take away his car, and and be very upset with each other. So it's a process. It takes time. So wherever we can, even if we think we want to be violent, we have to think 100 times. Is that so? Because that's what the ego wants to do. So when the Vedas said that violence is a recourse, it was an extreme recourse, extreme exception, not, oh yeah. So what Gandhi ji gave to us, what did Gandhi, Mandela, what did John Lewis really represent to us was teaching a bulk of humanity our obligation to be truthful, to live in the truth, to be truthful, to walk that truth, and from that truth, remember to be nonviolent and kind to each other. So with this, I'd like to stop here, and when I come back, I want to talk about further about Satyagraha and relationships, specifically around communication. So I'll be right back. We are talking about Satyagraha. Satyagraha means insistence upon truth. And when we insist upon embodying truth in our life, in our speech, in our actions, in our behaviors, in our thoughts, then automatically we become non-violent, peaceful, harmonious, cooperative, and loving. And the reason for that is that the truth that we are talking about here is not ordinary humble truth of your truth versus my truth. It is the ultimate truth of spirit. We are all one. And when we dare to consider that in our daily life, then we become satyagrahis, or we become people who want to insist upon that higher truth of spirit, and as a result walk a path of non-violence. I want to talk to you right now about the insistent upon non-violent communication, truthful communication, kind communication, beneficial communication that was taught by the ancient scripture of the Veda, the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita was a go-to text, a go-to solace for a great spiritual, political, social leader of our times, Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi was inspired by ideals taught by the Bhagavad Gita, such as Brahmacharya, Satyam, Tapasya, and the like. From that core text is a four-principled or four-charter communication that I want to talk about, because in my global satsang, I am talking about how we can bring Satyagraha from an ideal out there used by some leaders to how you can bring it into your own life. That is my interest, because I have lived and tried to live by the ideal of Satyagraha in my daily life, and I'm very grateful to have that ideal. So this comes from the Gita, and so I'm going right to that source. And so the first teaching that the Gita gives us is that whenever we speak to another, which means, and it doesn't say which another, it doesn't just say when you speak to your friend you should talk like that, and when you talk to your enemy you talk like that. It was clearly whenever you speak, you must speak with ahimsa or non-violence. Let's sit with that. Imagine somebody has been unfair to you at work. Imagine if your partner has misbehaved. Imagine if your child has broken some rules. Imagine if your best friend, your bestie as they say, has stabbed you in the back by gossiping about you behind you. That hurts you. Imagine having a confrontation with them, but that confrontation is non-violent. Imagine bringing up the situation that I have been hurt by your behavior. I was disappointed by what you did. I didn't expect that, but you can do this non-violently. And so when you do that non-violently, you are settled in the truth of your own self, your Atma, your truth. And you know that behind the scheming, lying person, the mind, the ego, lies a beautiful soul. And when you dare to speak non-violently, chances are that the person won't get so defensive or offensive, but may express regret, a momentary loss of sanity. Non-violence begets non-violence. Peace begets peace. Love begets love. So the first principle of beautiful dharmic communication from the Gita is non-violence. The second principle is truth. So it's interesting. The second principle is truth, satyam. The first principle is not truth. The first principle is non-violence, because sometimes when we speak the truth, we become very sassy. Aha, I speak the truth. I have the truth. I am the embodiment of truth and you're the embodiment of falsehood. No. We have to be non-violent as we speak and utter the truth or ask for truth to be told to us. So non-violence first, satyam second, truth second. Thirdly, we are told that go ahead and make it pleasant. So speak in such a way. So that means taking ownership. This is the piece about that Gandhi talked about, self-sacrifice or tapasya or self-effort. So you, even though you're talking to somebody who has stabbed you in the back, you still make an effort to make your tone not shrill or your breathing less rapsy and your pitch pleasant. Because even in that temporary moment of a discussion that is not comfortable, the truth still remains that you two, this is the core Vedic belief, still share a common soul. You may have different bodies, different egos, different minds, but a common soul. So if you're talking to the spiritual divine truth, even though that spiritual divine truth through the ego has hurt you temporarily, in the large scheme of things, you're still one. And if radical oneness is the only truth, then how would you address? So you make an effort to be pleasant. And this is a very hard one for a lot of people. They may speak the truth and they raise their voice and get very vociferous and voluminous, and the words have a lot of sharp edges, and so make the experience pleasant. If it's pleasant, then the other, you become of assistance to the other person. They are able to digest this uncomfortable realization that they have hurt you. So it's a gift. In my life, I try that. Yeah. So important. So important. How much people are hurting each other. Then finally, the fourth one is it beneficial to your listener? Hitam. Is it beneficial? Or are you speaking just because you want to vomit what you are thinking? Because you're so bent up now that you just gotta vent on that other person. Talk. What you are saying will, as a result of this communication, will they walk away closer to truth, closer to peace, closer to their own being, or will they become more damaged, estranged, hurt, belligerent, angry, bitter as a result? Just because we have the privilege of communication does not mean we don't have the responsibility to be mindful about it, responsible about it. With this last consideration, gradually my communication, even during spiritual counseling or satsang, became more and more, over the last few years, it has become lesser and lesser. Because beyond a point, if you teach too much, it's nothing. There's no meaning. Then the teacher is having fun teaching. Student has stopped learning. And sometimes I realize that for my speech to be beneficial, my silence plays a very big role. Quietness, not cold silence, soulful silence. Silence filled with Satyagraha, the insistence upon truth, living it. So with these 4 points, non-violent, ahimsa, truth, satyam, pleasant, anudvegakaram, and finally pleasant, hitam, you can make your communication inside relationships truly worthy of being labeled as Satyagraha communication. Probably this word is not out yet. People are not talking about Satyagraha communication. When they talk about Satyagraha, they think it is all to do with, spiritual leaders and political leaders or social leaders, and nothing to do with us. But I am inviting you to bring those teachings into your life, into your bedroom, into your mind, into your heart. And then you will notice that everything is blossoming around you. And I tell you that by using these principles, these communication, and what I taught in my previous session, you might want to go find it if you're joining me now, where I talked about ways to interact with your partner in a relationship, how to deal with them, like see them as equal, or be the change you want to see in them, etc. When you bring all this together, you are leading the life of being a satyagrahi. You are being that person. You are living truth, expressing truth, and ultimately receiving back the truth. When you connect to a person at their soul level, sooner or later, their soul talks back to you. I'm remembering a Disney movie I had seen with my child. It was called Beauty and the Beast, I think. And how pure love transformed the beast into a handsome prince. We have so much power. Love has so much power. And the two arms of love are truth and non-violence. Please understand that Gandhi gave to the world, through his experiments with truth, a bold vision. It might be a higher path, but it's a path worth walking on and seeing if you can embody it and become a Gandhi in your own life to an extent. So, bidding farewell to another great soul from our nation, John Lewis, and for his exemplary service, being a teacher of Satyagraha, so much so that 3 presidents showed up at his funeral: Bush Jr., Obama, and Bill Clinton. And they all remembered the most significant aspect of his legacy, which is non-violence. I tell you, with my life partner, with my son, I have won my way into their hearts through non-violent, loving communication. One time I showed my anger to one student. Once or twice I have shown, maybe 2 times. But that was a deliberate choice. They needed to see the Durga in me. Oh, you've crossed a boundary. And that boundary is bleeding and going to bleed everybody. So it's enough. But otherwise, 99.9%, that willingness to walk the path of self. But when you're always walking the path of self, then that's what I'm trying to tell you, that the violence that the Vedas allow, or the anger that the Vedas allow, is not separate from the self. It's just what that situation or person needs. But this is where we have to discern where what is needed, and it takes a lifetime. I am 50 plus. It has taken a lifetime. It's not like I'm an Acharya, I know Sanskrit, I know the Vedas, so I know when to do what. It takes a lifetime. It takes a commitment. But love wins. Love is the truth. With that, I end my satsang. I will be back in case you have any questions and answers. This is a good time to send in your questions, your comments. I recommend you read my book, The Sovereign Self. It's coming up. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. In this book, I talk at great length about dharma, about this communication protocol. I talk about how to lead your whole life from truth. There is a value to cultivating contentment. There is a short time or a very small window where discontentment can help you. There is a place where you are always generous, but there is a discernment when not to be generous, to the wrong kind of people. There is value in always being non-violent, a very small window where you are allowed something other than the default. This is Veda. Veda gives the big picture. And I bow to this great tradition. I am so glad that you could join me. Do the good thing. Share this knowledge with your friends, family, so that more and more people can benefit from the light of Satyagraha. See you in a minute. We are receiving questions on the topic of Satyagraha in daily life. So one question is, if someone has lied and it seems the only way to stop the situation without a fight is to pay money, although it is unjustified, is it worth fighting for the truth or just paying to end it? So my answer would be that this is where Satyagraha involves some patience and some self-sacrifice of your time and involvement. This is not a quick fix. So by paying someone and wanting the problem to go away would not be qualified as Satyagraha. That's a solution, but that is not Satyagraha. And so I don't know what is the ideal solution here, because that is not what I'm offering. I'm not offering exact solution for a life situation, because it requires a greater looking at what's going on. But what I can say is, from an intention perspective, you may want to hold on to the truth. What is the truth here? If the truth is that you don't owe the person money, so first ascertain the truth, and if you know that truth, then your work is to continue to win over that person and their belligerence that you owe them money, and slowly bring about a change in their belief and character, that they ultimately say, you know what, I think I was fantasizing or projecting or blaming you, but in reality, you don't owe me money. Now see, this can take a whole lifetime. This takes time. So let's see if there is another question. Another question is, when someone approaches you in an angry, abusive, controlling manner, what is the best practice at that moment to not be induced into that state? I think my entire satsang was about that. So to not be induced in that moment is probably to keep breathing and pay more attention on the expelled breath. So draw your attention inwards when somebody's saying, you're that, calling you names, faces, throwing things. Well, hopefully they're not throwing things, and then you have to duck back. But basically, if you want to practice Satyagraha, then you want to remember the truth of self and soul, and remember that this person is also a soul, just that their ego mind is right now diseased with egotism and entitlement and inflation of aggression. They're only disease. So as I mentioned, don't dislike them, feel sorry for them, for their situation. So when you remember all these aspects of Satyagraha, then you will not be caught up. You get caught up when you think the other person is the evil, instead of thinking, oh, they're having a case of evil infection. Like if somebody gets flu or cancer, we don't say you're a bad person. We send them flowers. In the same way, if somebody has the disease of anger, rage, you don't get caught up in reacting with them with your own rage. You send them flowers. So this is Satyagraha. So if you deep breathe while they're doing that, then you will go on remembering who you are and what is that person's situation. You will get over your desire to give explanations or have the last word, or even tell them how abusive they are in that moment, because that's how Satyagraha works. And then when they are calm, you will persuade them. You use the power of persuasion and love, and you look at what is broken in them. What are they really looking for? This is like a mass. Gandhi was attempting a mass level psychological change, and you have it easier because you can work on that one person slowly and it takes time. So let us see if there is another question. Apparently not. So with this, I would like to end the satsang. I welcome you to join my Vedic Contemplations group. It's a group on Facebook. So if you look up Acharya Shunya, Vedic Contemplations, you shall find a group. We continue to churn ideas on the satsangs here and on the podcast. And if you got fascinated about using Satyagraha as a tool in your relationships, I have also recorded an entire podcast on it. Similar ideas, but different ways of teaching. I never repeat or read things. So you can listen to it again. Not sure when it's being released, but it's coming up. So you can make sure and subscribe to my podcast, Shadow to Self. It's available everywhere, wherever you find your podcast, Spotify or Apple, wherever you want to find it, Stitcher. And if nothing else, you can go to my website, acharyashunya.com, and you'll find the tab called podcasts, and they're right there. And when you do listen to podcasts, let me remind you, please leave some comments and reviews. We are, again, this really is a movement where I'm probably one of those rare female teachers from the Vedas, taking the teachings away from the miracle-based, one person is higher than you, the rest of us are lower than that person, and we're all just waiting for some miracles to happen. That kind of version of Vedic spirituality, Hindu teachings and mantras, to real, thoughtful, thinking-based, psychology-based self-help tools. And I appreciate all your help in spreading the word, becoming the change that you want to see in the world. And I'll see you around for the next satsang. Take care. Lots of love.